Welcome to Gumption! I have
Hello.
the jar again,
Hello.
the traditional jar full of green little papers. They won't always be green once we, run out of these, but that's okay.
Wow, it's a tradition already. Hasn't taken us long.
It's been like 3 times already, hasn't it? I don't know.
3 times makes a tradition. Okay.
Yeah, totally. Oh, we're talking about Castle today.
Castle. Yes. I
Okay,
love that
We
show.
all
that's
like
good. Considering, did you
We
hear
don't
the
know about
news?
it.
Did you
What's
hear the
happened?
news?
They're not cancelling it, are they?
No, they are canceling it.
What?
Or they're either canceling it or Kate is not coming back.
Oh.
What?
Man.
Reactions, please.
I'm like
Oh
not
man.
all the way, so I don't really know. But it's been a
Oh,
really long show, so it's
Mm,
probably good for it to change
yeah.
or end.
But what
Either
happens if she
way.
leaves the show? They pretty much have to stop it because she's kind of the, isn't she? I don't know. If they don't have her, they just have Castle. It's not as good.
well, so because I'm old, I can tell you that in Macmillan and Wife, when the wife died, um, the actress didn't die. She went off to have a baby. They got rid of her, and they had Macmillan as a widow with his housekeeper,
So the
Mildred.
housekeeper.
No,
Oh.
no, no. Mildred was not a love interest.
Okay.
Mildred was like 4 feet 8 inches tall and looked old even when she was young. So no, she was not a love interest. But they did. The show
Okay.
went on for another 2 seasons, I think.
Mm,
It
yeah.
wasn't as good, but they did go on.
It's like Two and a Half Men when they changed Charlie Sheen out. It was never as good.
Well, and got rid of the kid. So it wasn't even two
Yeah.
and a half men anymore. They just
No.
completely, that was a
Lost the
weird,
plot.
weird.
Yeah. I mean, Charlie Sheen went insane, but, could have just pulled the plug. Anyway, so back on Castle. Um,
I'm trying to put this in the right place so I can look at it, but I
the
can't.
trouble with the trouble with Castle and with any of those programs where there's like a two people who are almost getting together for a long time and then don't get together, and then they finally do get together, you
Hmm.
kind of lose the tension when they do get together, and they have to find new ways to get the tension back. Like when that was happening, there were like 3 different shows where they all were doing the same thing on New Zealand television anyway. One was Bones, one was Castle, and one was House.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Bones and Castle both got together, and House he didn't. It was with the head of the hospital, and
Oh,
and
I
actually
remember
it was,
that.
yeah, and it was actually better. I kind of when they didn't get together and then they kept going on with the
Well,
the
who would really be
non-relationship.
sane enough to get together with House? I
Yeah, I
mean,
know.
not as sane. I
Absolutely.
mean, Bones and Castle, even though I find Castle to be a total idiot, and I could
Yeah,
still see why somebody would stay with him. House,
yeah.
you'd want to kill him if you tried to stay with him for too long.
I do like House though. I wish that hadn't stopped. Never mind. Um, yeah. So once
So,
they
so I
kind of
don't
the
know.
tension dropped.
I would say I am not a huge Castle fan, and I never have been. Um, I don't understand that Castle character. Um, it just always rubs me wrong. He's such a doofus. He's always getting things right, and yet people love him.
Right or wrong?
Because he's funny. He's the, classroom clown who is pretending to not be as smart as he really is.
But do you want a clown trying to solve your murder?
Well, he does tend to help them solve them. Like
I
that's
know
the
he does, but it seems improbable.
yeah.
I do. The one thing I do like about him is like all of his. He just did this like a week or two ago. Um, his theories about like uh, extraterrestrials or witchcraft or ghost. I think it was ghosts. I can't remember which one it was, but he's so willing to go along that line, and they're all just kind of looking at him and humoring him.
Yeah.
But you really do get the sense that he believes it, which again is why it's so crazy to me that people respect him.
Well, I think part of why he is actually so helpful to them is because he's able to go think of all of these crazy improbable things. I think that helps them to not get stuck in their routines and to think outside the box.
Yeah. It is a very light-hearted show too, so I don't think you're
Oh,
supposed
it
to
is.
take any of them very seriously. My husband was watching it with me the other night, and he just can't bear it. He was just like, "That's just ridiculous. It's just not how it would
It is
happen.
ridiculous.
What are they doing?"
That's what's awesome about it.
But my
I
husband
know. I was
he
like, "Shush."
loved the actor, and the actor was in
Nathan
Firefly.
Fillion was in Firefly.
Yes,
Yeah.
and so he's like,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if Nathan Fillion was reading a restaurant menu, he would be on board for listening to him.
I actually was going to say that is why part of why I do like Castle is because of Nathan Fillion. I do like him as a character. He has got a certain charm about him that you can't help but like. And it's more to do with the actor than the character.
Well,
I
I'm not
feel
sure
like.
any other actor would be able to pull off the character of Castle quite right.
Mm.
In the same way that if you think about the show Sherlock, I don't think anybody but Benedict Cumberbatch could be Sherlock in that show.
I just saw the last episode of that. It was interesting.
That last episode of the British Sherlock series.
Of the British Sherlock series.
I love the American one with Johnny, what's his name? Johnny Lee Miller?
I love that one too, with Lucy Liu.
So,
I forget what his name is.
I watched the pilot of it because I was hoping it would be awesome because I'm generally a Sherlock Holmes fan, and I hated it.
You
because of
him
her.
Or her?
Her.
Yeah. I think that a lot of
which is really upsetting because Lucy Liu is really good.
Can't do women. No, I think a lot of traditionalists can't do women. I think a lot of people feel that way. I love it.
I love it. Yeah.
Well,
and I love it because of Johnny Lee Miller, not
her gender that bothered me. It was her interpretation of the character that bothered me.
Well, it's completely different. I mean, she's a sober companion, which is not what Dr. Watson was, and it gives an entirely different.
Right, but her attitude.
You have to get over.
Her attitude is what rubbed me wrong.
Oh, I like her attitude. I think you got to give Sherlock. You got to give Sherlock what for. You can't be Mr. Nicey to it.
No, you can't. But there's a way of having attitude that is fun to watch, and there's a way of having attitude that just makes me mad. And
it's not. I don't think it's supposed to be a lighthearted show.
No.
I think
we can just agree to. I think we just disagree. Agree to disagree.
Oh, I thought you were going to say he just agreed to come back for another season or something.
No. We just agree to disagree on that. What is it called? I can't even remember. Elementary. That's right. Yeah. I don't know. I quite like it. But I've stopped. The latest series I've stopped watching. So I do like the way he plays Sherlock. I do. It's that nervy thing that he does, whereas Benedict does it in a more. He's more superior, kind of. I'm better than everyone else, kind of way.
Tried to have a different actor play Sherlock in the script that was written for the Sherlock show instead of Benedict Cumberbatch. I don't think it would work. I think there are other Sherlocks in other shows and other movies that work really well, like Robert Downey Jr. in the movies. That works really well, and I don't think you could replace Robert Downey in those movies either. I think the actor sometimes gives life to the character that was written in a way that's not replicable.
But then you think of the Doctor Who. You think of the Doctor Who series, and it's like you get attached to one of the doctors, and you think no one else could ever play this as well, and then they bring in a new one, and you're like, oh, he's all wrong, and then 5 minutes later you're like, he's the best one ever, and that other guy didn't like him at all, like you.
And
you
I
soon move on.
Tom Baker, so I've been through more doctors than I care to admit. So yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. But I do think that it's interesting that the actors who were all playing Sherlock all still have they share a similar attitude, both in their acting and in their in the way they play Sherlock. because all of those actors are very versatile, and I think to be a super versatile actor, you almost have to have a lot of confidence in your own instincts and not necessarily in what your director is telling you. And I wonder if that was one of the things that, attracted the directors to those actors to play Sherlock, because he doesn't suffer fools at all.
And you have to let a lot of your own personality through, maybe, and that's maybe where you were right, Aurelia, that it's kind of like that Benedict Cumberbatch's kind of personality comes through. But I think it's the same is true with Robert Downey Jr. and Johnny. I hope it's Johnny Lee Miller. I'm saying his name all the time.
You're right. That's it. It always sounds like a country music singer to me, so I have trouble with his name.
The only reason I remember him or know who he is because I'm pretty sure he used to go out with Angelina Jolie when they were really, really young. They were in this movie together, and I'm pretty sure they dated for a while.
Well,
I could be wrong.
I saw him first in a series, and I don't remember the name of the series, but it was about a lawyer with a brain tumor who starts talking to God.
Okay, that's full on.
And he has an American accent in that series.
Okay.
And he was totally brilliant. So the first time I watched Sherlock, I'm like, I know this guy. Who is this guy? I know this guy. But he was just so different enough that I actually had to go look at IMDb to make sure it was the same actor. Because I have occasionally thought two actors were the same.
He is actually British too. I didn't realize that. I thought he was American.
Oh no, he's British.
Yeah.
Because I read an article with him when he started doing Sherlock, saying he was glad to be able to do his own accent for a change.
Oh, that's so funny. Anyway, sorry. How did we get off Castle though? Back to Castle.
I don't know.
Come on.
Sherlock's more interesting.
We were talking about actors.
I actually think because if you're talking about the characters out of Castle, I think is it Kate? Is that the character's name? She's the one with Gumption, right? So the series is called Castle, but she's the one with the Gumption.
Oh, I think all the women in Castle have Gumption. Which is interesting. But Kate.
The guys are all kind of the beta, aren't they? They're all kind of these instead of alphas, they're betas because they've got these strong women.
Oh man, I'm blanking on everybody's name.
But I don't know. It's the mom and the daughter and Kate.
The mom and the daughter and the kid. But the coroner.
And the coroner lady. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to look it up right now.
Lainey is the coroner. I remember.
Lainey. That's right.
She's definitely alpha.
Yeah, I like her. She is definitely alpha.
Fun. And I like the dynamic between her and Esposito a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting what they do with that because those two,
it stuff happens and then they're not together anymore. And then stuff happens and then they're not together anymore, and it's very. It all makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, their relationship is kind of interesting. I do agree.
I also like the random mystery writer cameos at the poker games.
They don't do that anymore. Well,
it
occasionally
was fun when they did it.
I know. Occasionally they will do it. I did like those because I
don't think they ever had more than one.
I wonder who that really is. Well, no, it was just it wasn't supposed to. Oh no, I think it was more than one a season. Well, I don't know. I thought they would do one more frequently than that. But maybe it is only one a season, but I certainly missed it because I was trying to figure out if I knew the authors. I knew I was supposed to, but you don't ever look like your book jacket.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I haven't been listening to what you're saying, but I've just been reading about the breaking news. It's not that she's leaving, it's just they're saying that they haven't renewed her. They've basically decided they're going to have a big change up for the next season of Castle, and they're not renewing her. Well, I don't know. This is the way they're wording it. Her and Lainey are not coming back. They're not renewing their contracts.
That's the way they're wording it. What it means is they didn't come to agreement on how much money she wants to get paid.
I
wonder if it has something to do with equal pay for equal work.
Yeah,
and all of that.
Pretty sure it does.
Because it's the two women who are the ones that we were just saying were the really good characters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but Lainey has been less and less. I mean, I know,
Yeah.
Aurelia, you're at the beginning of it. Lainey was
Well,
in
I'm
it a
not at the
lot
beginning,
more.
but I'm several seasons behind, so I don't know.
Yeah, so like the last season or two, Lainey hasn't been, and I've missed her. It's like they'll have like these sort of guest coroners, and I'll be like, no, I want Lainey. It was really noticeable.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure, in Hollywood, it's always a money issue.
Yeah. Well, and
Well, no, they're
Christine
saying,
Catherine Rush
okay,
had a good post about stuff like this in the past few months sometime. So I'm not surprised about it.
it does say that while the studio started making overtures to Fillion for a new deal months ago and has been in on and off talks with him since the beginning of the year, I hear Katic was never approached to re-up her contract and was not offered an opportunity to continue on the show. Instead, I hear she, as well as Jones, were informed late last week that for budgetary reasons, they won't be asked to come back for season 9.
Yeah, see, I don't believe that because I'm pretty sure she's got a pretty good agent, and so that agent would not have been sitting around waiting for an offer. Well, I hope not. I think they just decide. I mean, it's a guy show, even though
No, it
the
isn't.
women.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. It's not a guy show at all.
Here is my evidence. And I don't know if you've gotten to this yet, Aurelia, so I'll just start it. And if you haven't gotten to it, I'm not going to spoil it. But at one point, the daughter is about to go off to college a year early. And she actually asks Castle to help her, write a letter and help her do this. She's clearly educationally able to do this. And she's motivated. Have you seen that?
Yeah,
one
no,
yet?
I've seen where she moves into college. For real. I've gotten past that.
No,
part.
this is early. Okay, so
Yeah,
you're past that.
I'm
Okay,
past that part.
and so he steps on her opportunity to get in. He actually stops her.
Yeah, because
she's going to go too far. That is not a strong woman. That is a strong woman being suppressed by an insecure man.
it's an insecure dad being scared that his daughter's going to get herself someplace where he can't help her anymore. But
yes,
I don't.
That's called suppressing a strong woman. There's no doubt she would have been quite successful on the other side. Now, also,
right, but she would have been successful anywhere she went.
No, but story-wise, it was also an actress who didn't want to leave the show because, no, she never left the show. However, the storyline skeeved me out because they wrote that clearly like he did a good thing, and he didn't. He did a horrible father thing. No father gets a gold star for stopping his daughter from doing what she wants to do when she is perfectly capable of doing it. That just doesn't. I mean, and I know I'm speaking from a mom's perspective.
I also think that the majority
horrible.
of fans of the show are women, and the majority of interesting characters on the show are women. Like, yes, it's named Castle, and yeah, Nathan Fillion is the main character, but without Lainey and Kate, like I stopped watching when it got all complicated. Around the wedding because the female characters stopped being as prominent.
That was weird too, that wedding one.
The wedding part was like weird. And part of why I stopped is because I tend to watch TV with people and not alone. So if I'm watching stuff on my own, I don't get as far. But
you probably got the best seasons. It got really weird at the wedding, and it didn't really improve until this last year. This last year, the shows have been, more Castle-like, more.
I think it got too complicated. They got together. The problem was they got together. They lost all the tension.
Oh, and then they did the stupid things to bring them apart.
Well, and they try and make there be all these big world problems that, like, that's not what it's supposed to be about. I think you can have characters ending up together and still solving crimes. Like, I think Bones did this very well.
Yeah, they've done it really, really well. I mean, they've got.
But they still always created. But they still created things, like there was Booth's gambling problem that came in, and then she was being focused on by the serial killer. So they still had to have conflict within the relationship. And I have to say, it was never as good as before where they got together. Do you know what I mean? Like, as soon as they get
Oh, I
together, you lose
disagree.
all that tension.
I like it
My
better
mom agrees
after.
with Trudy, but I don't.
I don't know why, but I like it better after. I mean, I didn't
Yeah.
really feel any particular tension for them to get together. I could see it was inevitable.
Yeah.
And they always surprised me how they would do it. Like, I mean, I love the way he, like, when they're driving, he will coach her on how to behave. It just cracks me up, because the truth is, when you live with someone like her, life is never easy, even after you're married, and maybe especially after you're married. And they kind of show that, you know? And
Yeah.
the same with him, because they brought in his faith, where she is like totally atheist, and like, you know, faith is nonsense, but now she has this man she loves and she's got to deal with it. And she doesn't like it, but I mean, I like the way they deal with those things. And I think for me, that's richer than the will they or won't they kind of relationship.
Especially
maybe
you already know that when you can see that they're going to end up together, and then these random obstacles get thrown in their way, that to me feels unreal.
Yeah. So maybe that is why Bones is better than Castle in this aspect, because Castle, they're kind of trying to find these arbitrary third-party external things coming in and separating them, whereas for Bones it's actually things that are inherent in their personalities that are causing the clashes, and that feels more real and consistent than Castle's arbitrary
characters.
Yeah.
I mean, they're really well drawn. I mean, you know, they both have backstories, and you know, we learn a little bit more about them each time. And it's always, the writers, I mean, you know, I didn't think about it until we just talked about it. The writers really are on their game about that. They keep us learning stuff about those characters. Interesting stuff. So you go, oh, I didn't know that, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they do that with the other characters too.
Yeah, and I think that can cross over into our writing as well. Like when you're writing a book, it's the one that have, like, that when you've got characters that actually have flaws that are that are conflicting against each other, rather than just some external thing that comes in. And I mean, I suppose that's an action movie. So if you like action movies, hey, that's fine. But you know, if you're going to have something a bit deeper,
you still have to have some internal conflict as well as external, because often the external conflict is a result of the internal. If you have an issue with yourself
not necessarily.
or an issue with someone else, it can manifest itself as you handling a situation incorrectly.
But you often have like action movies that have absolutely no internal conflict. Like it's just some guy battling some. Yeah.
I mean, I don't.
So you're clearly not someone who likes that, but I mean, there are people who do. So.
Yeah.
It is,
well, this is what I've never seen Transformers, because to me that looks like just a bunch of people fighting people for no reason.
Yeah.
But
apparently, I've heard people talk about The Martian and saying, well, actually, he has no internal conflict on The Martian either, because it's a guy using his knowledge to battle all the external forces. He doesn't change. He doesn't move from being something to another thing. He's just a guy that, you know, like battles a series of external problems, and he does it really well.
Are those people who read the book or see the movie?
I think they've done both, but maybe the movie is less
because the movie doesn't show. I mean, what he does. I mean, he's constantly battling himself because he's learning about stuff he's not good at. So I mean, instead of going, I'm bad at this, he figures out how to. I mean, I don't know. I think every day when you don't think that you're going to live very long and life is that big you're constantly battling yourself to stay alive. Every, one day long, because it would just be always try, especially if you don't think you have anything to live for. And until they actually message him and they know he's alive, he doesn't think he has anything. He doesn't think he has a future.
But
did
that change him? Did that change him? Did that make him? I don't know. I'm asking. I'm seriously asking because I haven't read the book.
I think decisions like that may, do change you, because if
they would change you in real life, but that I don't know I haven't read the book, so I don't know. But I do know that sometimes in writing a book, if you're writing it from first person, you can get inside someone's head, and so you can show how they're internally conflicted and how they come to a decision. Whereas in a film, sometimes you don't have that unless you do voiceovers. You don't have that thought that's showing. It's just someone doing stuff, and you're seeing the results of the thought process. And like my example of this is I went and saw 50 Shades, and I thought it was a terrible movie. And the book is okay for what it is, but the movie was terrible. And it didn't have anything to do with the acting or the costumes or like how they adapted it. It had everything to do with the book. 50 Shades, the book, is written from first person. You're inside her head the whole time. You know exactly what she's thinking about. So you get the internal conflict. And then at the end, she's like, no, I'm leaving you. And he's devastated, but you understand where that's coming from and all of the conflict that's been happening inside her head. But in the movie, she says, no, I'm leaving you, and you're like, that makes no sense.
Yeah, because you haven't had that internal knowledge of her internal conflicts going on. You just see her as being this kind of, girl who's been going along with everything he's been suggesting at that point.
Completely docile and, okay, sure, let's try that. Sure, let's try that. Wait, sorry, no, I'm going away forever. Bye.
Oh, so that felt really. Oh, I see what
you're saying. So the movie was really bad because it didn't have. It could have been the actress.
Because
I didn't mind the movie.
It was.
I didn't mind the movie, but as soon as you said that to me, I mean, and you've said that before, I went, yeah, you're absolutely right. There was you didn't get any of that internal stuff because in the book she doesn't talk to anyone else. You can't have this dialogue of her talking to. Right. All you could do would be to have some kind of internal.
Talk to anyone else about it. She's contained within her own head as she's making all of these decisions. And she's doing things for reasons that only make sense to her because she's not talking about it to anybody else.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Anyway.
That's why movies and TV are very different from writing, I guess. That's where you've got reading. To know.
Yeah.
And got to know how you can... And that's why often people say, the book was better, because the book always is able to give insights and more information.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and it's not just... So with the Avgardia journals that I'm putting out right now, that's the journal of each character. So it's only what they're thinking in their head. And they'll tell you what they did that day if they feel like it. But I have this whole other piece of the story in my head that's like, okay, this is what happens and when and why and how. And so I could write a book that's from third person with dialogue and everything. Or I could write a movie script, and it would be the same events and the same characters, but the journals would be the internal and the movie would be the external. And so they add to each other. Because they're not, other than that they happen to be telling the same story, they're telling it in such a completely different way that it's not an adaptation, it's a new thing.
There's a thing called transmedia. Have you ever heard of that? Also called cross media, and it's this. I love it. I love the concept, and I've been to a few courses around it. And it's basically the idea of having a story world and putting it into different platforms. So you have a book, and you have a movie, and you have something on a website, and you have a forum maybe, and you have a manga book, and you do it because in each of those different platforms you handle it differently.
Different. Yeah.
And you give different information. So information that you have in the movie and the way stuff is portrayed in the movie is completely different to what you might talk about on a forum or what you might have in a book.
Yeah.
And it's not just a movie version of a book, it's actually kind of different sections of a greater whole.
This brings it back to Castle, because one of the things I really like about Castle is that they publish novels that he's written based on the stuff that's happened in the season. And if you're watching the show, you can read the book and you're like, oh, this little piece of this mystery is coming from this episode, and this little piece is coming from this episode, and you can figure it out. But at the same time, it's completely different.
I can't imagine how they're going to replace Kate. Are they going to
I
take
don't
him
think
a
they can
complete...
replace her. I think they would need to have something completely different happen.
I reckon he's going to go with a detective agency then. He's going to go more into
That's
that
what I'm
side of
thinking.
things.
I mean, they've decided to keep the mother and the daughter, Alexis and
Yeah.
Martha.
And then there's that new woman who's the detective who's working at his agency. What's her name?
Yeah,
Can't remember
and
her
I
name
like
either.
her. I
Yeah,
like
I
that
like her too.
actress. But yeah, you know, I just I I only watch the show because my husband watches it. Otherwise, I would never click on it anymore.
That's
They
so
lost
funny.
me.
That's the complete opposite of what I... I kind of am in agreement with Aurelia that it's a female show. And it's interesting that it's your husband that likes it. But
I think your
yeah,
husband's the only guy I know who likes it.
Well, he likes, like I said, he likes Nathan Fillion, so
Lillian,
he'll watch
yeah.
him in anything.
Yeah, but I have a
Mhm.
lot of guy friends who like Nathan Fillion, but they don't watch Castle, and they don't watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer either. Or no, that's the other guy.
That's Angel. That's
Yeah.
Bones.
Really, they
You'd think
don't
that
watch
they'd
Buffy the
be...
Vampire Slayer? How can they not watch that?
Because they're guys.
Is it really? No, there's loads of guys who like Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
My husband and my sons
Yeah.
both love
Yeah.
Buffy.
I guess I
Yeah,
just
no.
don't know the right guys. Yeah, that's possible.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer is kind of a cult thing, and that's definitely guys and girls. Whereas Castle, I don't know.
I don't
So
know.
what?
That's an interesting point.
I just think that character of Kate is such a strong character, and I think that it's interesting that they've decided that she's a problem and that she's one of the things that they're going to shake up. I mean, I guess they can't get rid of Nathan Fillion, can they? Because it's his name on the, like, he's Castle. So.
But you know what I liked about the show before it first came on was I liked that they were flipping the gender roles. So that they had kind of the flighty man and the serious,
Woman.
law enforcement woman, because she was very law and order to begin with, and he's kind of lightened her up a lot.
Maybe that's a problem. Now she's gone too far down the track of subterfuge and lying, and with that whole stuff that she's trying to figure out about. I don't even know what she's trying to figure out now. I know that she's working with that other guy, and they're doing something
That's
secret.
a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
So they've lost.
And maybe that's the problem, is that now that she's married to him, she keeps him in line. It doesn't track right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just know that.
I mean, I suspect
After
that
a
the
while,
real
I get
reasons are
tired
more financial in
living
nature
with
and
her.
have nothing to do with the story at all.
Yeah.
Because, and this is Christine Catherine Rush had a post on her blog a while back about viewers. And she was talking about how all of the good scripts for new shows get pitched to the paying channels first. So they'll get pitched to Amazon and to Netflix and to HBO and to Showtime first before they go to the network channels, because on one of those paid channels it can be a higher rating. You can be more explicit about things if you feel like you need to be. There's more freedom to do whatever you want to do with the story. And there's consistent money. Whereas for cable channels, the money is coming from the number of people who are watching the show live, and that's decreasing as the paid things, where it's on demand, go up.
And that's going to only increase. Like, I don't watch normal TV
It's
at all.
only going to get worse. And I think that the network is trying to cut people that they don't feel are bringing in strong ROI, but that's only going to make them lose more faster.
Do you know what's funny? Like, I listened to John Cleese. Like, this is completely random. John Cleese came into the talk in New Zealand, and I went to it because I was a journalist at the time covering that kind of stuff. And he ranted about how, because he was in some pilot of some new show, and they'd had a few episodes in, and it got cut like really early on because they look at the numbers, and if the pilot doesn't do really well, and if the first couple of shows or whatever don't, just bring in the numbers. They can it straight away. They don't give it a chance.
Give it
I
a
remember
chance.
him. And he was talking about Cheers. So everyone knows Cheers. Like, that was a long running show that everyone loved. Cheers didn't kick off for a couple of seasons. Like, it was very low rating at first, and it didn't start building up its audience for a few years, but they kept it running, and it turned into one of the longest running shows. And it's the same for Star Trek. Star Trek got canned after two or three seasons. I can't remember the exact numbers.
Not even that
because it
long,
wasn't.
I don't think.
Yeah.
It got canned faster than that. And then in reruns, it went absolutely bonkers.
Yeah. And so it's only got like these tiny number of shows that they can ever show of Star Trek. And because they can't, I mean, that was in the 70s, so it's not really going with my point, but you know, they when they don't give a show a chance, they kind of lose out. So not that I'm saying they should give Castle a chance. I think Castle
this goes to long tail business theory as well. I mean, with music and with books and with shows, you have to plan for the long term. And the sudden hit it's still possible to have a sudden hit, but the total number of viewers to make that hit possible is smaller. Because there's more people who can watch or read or listen to more different things.
And having a sudden hit, especially on a first book, is such a terrible thing, I think, because you've got nothing to back it up with. You've got nothing for example, on a book, that for your viewers that have just suddenly discovered they love you to go on to. So, and there's so much happening in so many other books and movies and things out there that they'll just forget you. And so you
and this is with actors as well. I mean, look at Daniel, what's his name? Harry Potter guy. He can't ever play anything else because everyone looks at him and is like, "Oh, you're Harry Potter."
Well, he's done a bit more than the other two.
He has done other things, but Emma Watson has been very good because she tried to play roles that were very different from Hermione. And she succeeded, and she's done a lot of different things, and people have seen that she's capable of doing a lot of different things. Whereas I think he waited too long.
Daniel Radcliffe.
I think it's I think it's very difficult for child actors. This is a really common thing that happens to child actors is they get typecast, and they also
it's not just child actors that get typecast. It's other people as well.
It's true, but there's something about child actors, and Hollywood is a very jealous place, and so everybody wants to be top dog, and they're constantly trying to trump each other.
Well, and the ones who don't care about being top dog are the ones who are successful, and they end up playing a lot of different types of roles.
No, I don't mean actors. I'm not talking about the actors. I think actors are just actors. I'm talking about the people who make the decisions on who is going to get the role, and the people who make the decisions on who's going to get the money. You'll often see when a director is super successful and then the next movie doesn't make a ton of money, all of a sudden he's hacked, he's washed up, nobody wants to work with him. I mean, Hollywood is like hype or die, and I think for actors that's a real problem. It's very unusual for a child actor to successfully transition to an adult actor, especially one whose face is as well known as Daniel Radcliffe. I'd be curious to see if he could do something different. I mean, you were talking about,
but it's not been anything I wanted to watch.
He started doing theatre. Like he's done some theatre in the UK and stuff. Like he's not doing nothing, and it's just he's had to maybe change his thing. And he's also a very interesting looking adult. Like I don't think he's traditionally
right. Yeah. He was a cute little boy, and now he's more of a character actor man, and that could be tough. He might be willing to go with character actor roles, but people may not be willing to put him in them, and that's part of the issue. I mean, because he made so much money as a child. I mean, it's just a very weird structure, the way that they do things.
It is, but I think when you do have one big hit at the beginning, if you don't have the skills to support that in the long term, that's when it becomes a problem.
But maybe also
Well,
they
and I
don't
think
want to. I
sometimes
mean,
it's not.
we don't know if Daniel Radcliffe even wants
No,
to have a career. He's got millions. He might be happy doing something else, and
no,
it's just we don't know about it.
we're
You know,
completely
we're
making stuff
assuming.
up, obviously. But like, if you're a writer and you have a big hit on your first novel, either you're really good at writing or you did it by accident. And if you're really good at writing, then you can follow it up with another really good book. But if you did it by
Mm,
accident, chances are that you don't know what you're doing well enough to follow it up with a good book, and then you shoot yourself in the foot. And I think acting
I'm
is
not sure
similar
that's
because
true.
there are a lot of skills that go into being a good actor. And I think part of why a lot of child actors run into problems is because they got cast to play this one role as a child, but they didn't actually get the acting training. They're just like being this character because they've always been this character, and then they haven't learned the skills to be more
something
adaptive.
else. Mm.
But not, I mean, some, that's the thing about acting, is some actors, I mean, take Castle, for example, they put different clothes on him, but he acts exactly the same in all his roles. He doesn't
Mm.
really
Right.
have much versatility, but that's what people love about him. He's really charming.
Mm.
And Benedict, getting his
Benedict
name,
Cumberbatch is a different
yes,
character every
he's
time.
Yeah.
absolutely, I mean,
And
yeah, I mean,
that's what's awesome about him, and that's what's awesome
yeah,
about Meryl Streep, and that's what's awesome about Angelina Jolie. I mean,
exactly.
Yeah, I
like
don't like
the really
Angelina Jolie. I don't
She's
think
a
she's
little
right,
for
dark.
but
me.
like
She's
she's
very
good at
distinctive.
playing roles in a lot of different contexts.
Mm, I
No,
disagree.
I think I think she's a strong actor, but I don't think she can just. I mean, I don't think that if I was looking at her in any movie that I would go, I'm sure I know her from somewhere, and then I'd have to look her up in IMDb. Where with Johnny Lee Miller,
Well,
every time he plays something, I have to look him up to make sure it's really him.
once you've seen an actor in enough different roles, you recognize them by their face.
I'm not.
But
I think I'm not that good at that.
well, I recognize them by their face.
Yes, you're more
Um,
visual than I am.
yeah, well,
I
and this
was I
is
was gonna.
part of like I did acting growing up, and I was taught how to do a lot of things by actors. And so I tend to judge actors based on their ability to bring a character to life and based on whether or not they can do a lot of different types of roles. Like Ian McKellen is amazing at this. He
Mm, yeah.
he's Gandalf and he's Magneto and like he's that character on that BBC show.
Although I would say that Gandalf and Magneto are very similar.
But
But
they
I'm not saying that
weren't
Ian
at
McKellen is.
all.
They're just in my head these older men who are kind of like
So yeah,
rumbling
so they
out
have
these
similar looks because
statements.
they're played by the same actor, but their personalities as characters, and they're
Yeah, I
like,
guess one's evil, one's not. Yeah, I
well, and
just
the way they interact with other characters are very different as well.
no, I like him. I'm not saying. I'm not disagreeing with that. I
Yeah.
was saying, but then an actor that I like to think like there's that guy Bryan Cranston who was in Breaking Bad, right? So that was his. Um, so Malcolm in the Middle, was that where he started? So that was his first one,
Yes,
and
well, I
then
don't,
Breaking
he was
Bad.
around for a long time, but
Mm,
he went from Malcolm in the Middle, where he played a goofy dad in a
mm,
comedy series, to Breaking Bad, and he didn't really look that different, but he
no,
acted really different. I mean, that was
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. But he
I
was,
think we
see, now
have
that,
this in our.
do we in our thing?
I thought you.
I was going to say because there was someone I think on one of the website I was reading recently that was talking about his career and how he got famous, and it was because every time, so he used to get guest starring roles, like lots of bit roles, like he's been acting for years before he got the bigger parts, and
Mm-hmm.
and he obviously didn't get them till he was in his 40s or whatever. So he was bit parts on lots of different shows, and so he would send postcards, not email because it was well before then. He would send postcards to all the casting agents every time he was in a show, and to tell them that he was in the show. And he was saying, 99% of them wouldn't watch it, but you'd still get maybe one who might consider, accidentally watch it, see him in the show, and consider him for
Wow.
something else. And that's what it took to kind of keep him in the mind's eye of those
Right.
casting directors.
That's
So I
almost
think
like
there's
email
more.
now.
Yeah, it was email marketing before there was email marketing, right? So, and I think there's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes in terms of which actor gets which roles
Oh, absolutely.
than we realize, right? Like it's about networking and marketing and all that kind of stuff,
And
rather than in the
personalities and
same.
grudges and money and
Yeah, totally. And
favor.
who knows who? Like that's why you get all these famous families. You've suddenly, you've got one child in another family who happens to be, and it's because they know the right people and they can get the, in the right movies, not because they're a better actor than any number of, like it's.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so we don't necessarily. It's the same for books. It's like, it's.
I don't think it's quite as bad for books because
No,
the personality is just not right there. I mean, if you're going to work with somebody intensely in a movie, you probably want to somewhat get along with them, maybe. I don't know. I've heard rumors that on Castle, just to get back to our original subject, that the two actors do not like each other at all.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
It's a total. I have no idea if that's true or not. I just read something about it. I read it early on in the series and it made me sad, but I have no idea if it's true or if it is still true.
Yeah.
But I do think it's an issue of not appreciating female actors enough. They probably can pay the mom and the daughter, together what they would pay Kate, and they're going to make a big savings.
So I wonder if they're going to obviously have to bring in a new love interest. That makes me sad. It makes me think, are they going to kill her off? Are they going to have them break up? I'm just like, no. Just talking about the two characters not liking each other. I used to love The Mentalist, and I always that was one of my favorite shows, right? And then they got those two characters together, and that was the most awkward thing I've ever seen in my life. The two of them trying to pretend that it was. And I don't know if it just felt like the actors felt really uncomfortable with it, and therefore that it felt really uncomfortable because it was something that you always felt like might happen, and it felt like they could have been together, but it was just really awkward, and it never felt real, and it never felt.
It didn't. They put a lot of barriers between them, and they didn't bring them down the right way. I mean, he had a complete fear that if he ever married and had a family again, someone would come and destroy it. That's a real fear. And I guess they tried to get rid of it. But
it went for like 10 years, didn't it? Like that series went for 10 years. So from where he was at the very beginning to where he was at the end, I guess you would have to hope that 10 years was enough time to, I don't know, get through that.
No, because until the very end, the person who was trying to get him was still around. So that's basically, they resolved it in like the last couple of episodes where they get the guy and now they can have a life together. And it didn't work. I mean, and I really, hoped, although, he's another one where it's a lot more fun to imagine being,
with him than actually being with him. Yeah. Yeah. But I always blamed the actors. And maybe it's not fair. Maybe it was the storyline and what they were given to do. But I always blamed the actors for that because they always both looked really uncomfortable with it. Like that guy, the guy he was so suave, and he would, there was that other woman that was, and then when it came to her, it just never seemed to be quite as. I don't know. It just was, I just used to watch it and just go, no.
It was just really tough to believe that she would trust him ever.
Yeah. It was just funny.
But you know what? I still kind of wanted them to get together, so I'm glad they at least ended it. And it might be, they might have wanted to go another whole season. Sometimes that's the bad thing.
You cut out.
Oh, Kelly's cutting out, and she's gone. Oh, she's back.
The thing I like.
That fast.
Speaking of mystery shows, the one I really like is oh my gosh, what's it called? Laura. Laura is the name of the person.
Laura Palmer, Twin Peaks. Oh no, yeah, I know what you mean. The other one with the redhead Laura.
The redheaded
Yeah,
detective?
and like it starts when the marriage has broken, right? And they have kids, and so there's like stuff, and you know at some point they're gonna try and get back together, and like it may or may not work, but we already know that like they have this history together of things working and not working, and to me that's really interesting because they're working together. They're both detectives, and she's really good at her job, and he's also very good at her job, or at his job. They have the same job. They're good at each other's jobs. It's fine.
They are.
and their kids are like, neither one of them is good at being a parent.
Yeah.
And so it's so fascinating to see, okay, how do they handle trying to raise their kids and trying to not hate each other and trying to not like love each other either, because if they're in either extreme of that relationship spectrum, everything falls apart.
Well, and
So
I
do
like,
they? Is it a
we're
comedy?
going to talk about that,
Or is
right?
it-
It's lighthearted in the way that Castle's lighthearted, but it's also a murder show.
Yeah.
It's
I
another
think I might
good
quite like that
show.
one.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think
you
What's
you'll
it
like
called?
it if
You
you've
would
seen
like
It's
it.
on Netflix. I don't know if it's on Netflix everywhere.
I've seen it somewhere, but I don't know. It might have been on TV in New Zealand.
The
I can't remember.
Mysteries of Laura.
The Mysteries of Laura.
It's based on a Spanish TV show of the same,
Is it?
yeah, which I thought was interesting. But I mean, I would say that Laura, I mean, I know we're going to talk about her. I think she's in our jar of papers. But I do think Laura's one
Our
of the
jar of
female
excitement.
characters. Yes.
Our jar of mysteries. We need to have more an exciting name for it. We can't just call it the jar of.
It's the
Sorry
jar.
to interrupt your flow. The jar of something.
The jar of topic. The topic
Okay,
jar.
No, that is the most boring name in the world. It has to be the jar of mystery or the jar.
Okay, the jar of mystery is pretty good.
Okay, good. Let's do that. Okay, now you can keep going, Kelly. Now that we've got it, the jar of mystery, I will let you continue.
Well, I just think that it'll be fun to talk about how strong in comparison to some of these other women, because really she's no holds barred. Comes right down to it.
And
so
that's
you have
what
to
Kate was
get-
supposed to be. That's what Kate out of Castle started as and was supposed to be. But I guess
Well,
she's
but
softened up.
Laura is more feminine than Kate is at the beginning of Castle. Like if you compare season 1 of Laura, because Laura only has season 1, and you look at Kate in the first season of Castle, they're very different women, and they would hate each other if they ever met.
Well, Laura's not, as rigidly by the rules as Kate ever was, and I think Laura's been worn down by her children, so it's natural that she's not quite.
Children do that to you.
And those two
They
children
wear
look like
you
they
out.
wear down.
Well, and it's not necessarily just that she's been worn down by her kids, it's that she's just a different type of woman.
Yeah,
She's
I
got
do
different
think she's one of the
different
strongest
interests.
ones. Yeah, and so I look forward to when we get to her show, because I'll be really curious. I mean, I'm sort of searching my brain.
I want there to be the next season already. Because I really enjoyed the.
keep checking, it's like, is there a new one? Is there a new one?
Is there a new one?
Not yet.
I was really excited that there were new Sherlock episodes, even though 3 of the 4 new episodes are behind the scenes. But then there's a 4th
Oh
one.
no, you're kidding. I hate behind the scenes.
They're really good though, and if you watch
Are
them
they?
before you watch the one that happens in the past, then it adds a lot to it. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
For what? For Sherlock?
Mhm.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to check it out. Do you know the other show that used to have a strong female, and it's again they've weakened her a little bit, is Blacklist? I used to feel like she was pretty strong, and then because they're trying to add depth to their characters, and now she's pregnant, and she, there's all these other things that have happened, and you still don't really know what the. There's sometimes with adding depth of character you lose that sense of strength, because the part of the strength, although maybe not in the Mysteries of Laura, she sounds like she's different, but sometimes the strength is because there's an air of mystery around them, and they seem to be one way. And then once you start getting through the layers, you realise that they're just like everyone else, and maybe not as strong or something. I don't know, and I don't know if there's a way to give someone problems and give them
Well,
insecurities,
but
but still keep them
is
strong.
that a problem with our cultural definition of strength?
Maybe. I don't know. I'm asking.
I don't
Have
know.
you? Okay, so Trudy, I'm going to ask you because I just saw this. I think it's a New Zealand series, but it could be Australian. It's about a lawyer, and the title of the show is Her. And
I didn't hear you. Sorry.
oh,
You're
so
cutting out.
sorry. It's either a New Zealand or an Australian show. It's about a lawyer, female lawyer. She's she's a mother. She's in a relationship. She has a boy, and she has twins. And she goes back to be a lawyer. She goes back to her job, and she has a little trouble juggling family and work. Have you seen one?
No, it's not a New
like
Zealand one.
Jane something. Okay, all right. Because when you said something about softening a character, that's what happened to her. It's like she started out. I mean, I'm like, why is she going? She was like throwing the book at somebody that it didn't make sense that she was throwing the book at them, and then she's like, backing off, and then by the end of the show, she's like soft.
Mm.
And it's like who she was. But since you didn't see it and Aurelia hasn't seen it, I'm going to drop it.
Okay. Sorry, I can't be more helpful. Yeah, I don't know. I just think, is there a way to portray a strong woman with faults who has issues and maybe insecurities and not make her seem soft and not make her seem still have her have gumption and be dealing with the world in a strong way? I don't know. I'm asking the question.
I think
What do you
there
think?
is, but I don't think it's a simple answer. I think it's the sort of thing that's going to take having lots of Gumption episodes to talk about until we figure it out.
I think part of it is having a
Kate had a
strong.
hard time in Castle. Kate had a hard time being strong.
Mm.
When she would be strong, Castle would look at her with his stupid puppy dog eyes, and it would feel wrong. Sometimes they would get it right, but not always.
Mm.
And
I
she
think.
did start out really rigid.
I think
Yeah,
maybe
but there's
part
a
of it is
difference between
having a.
rigidness and strength.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. She did start out really rigid, so it was harder to like her. She didn't want him, and I don't know. I just never felt the chemistry between them, to be perfectly honest. I'll put up with a lot of that stuff if there's good chemistry, but.
It's interesting. I just think that maybe it's kind of, we're talking back to Bones and those guys. They have really strong character kind of profiles, definitions. They know how the characters think and what they would and wouldn't do in different situations. And I think that becomes part of how making a strong series or program. It's like if you watch a movie or a series where you go, that character wouldn't do that. They're just trying to make it happen because that's what they want to happen. So, for example, with Kate, maybe doing things or loosening up on her ideals and her morals, but I don't mean a moral, I just mean her belief system.
Right.
Because she's somehow fallen in love with Castle. Maybe that's what doesn't feel right about it. It's like suddenly she's a different person.
Well, that's the really weird thing is that, the whole thing that stands in the way of their relationship is, that she can't have a relationship with him or she'll, lose her job. And then they just brushed over that really fast. It was kind of stupid the way they brushed over it. And I get annoyed when they do that.
But it in the beginning, it wasn't really even her job that was what was standing in the way of them. It was her. And her rules that she invented in her head.
Well, definitely, but she didn't.
And
want
then
him around
stuff
at
happens,
all.
and then there's the job issue because of other stuff that happens later. But at the very beginning, it's
at the very beginning,
her.
she just doesn't like him. Yeah, she just thinks it's ridiculous, as it is, to have a writer going along on the crime scenes, talking about aliens and ghosts.
Yeah, it is insane. Like, who would...
That's why it's awesome.
Well, that
That's
is
one of the
why it's
awesome things about
humorous.
TV and books and movies is that you get to explore all of the ridiculous things that could be but aren't, and you can like learn, okay, this is why this would never work in real life.
Although, the minute you say that, then somebody goes, but in this little town in somebody does this. I mean, I think the thought that it would happen in a big city, I forget, are they in New York City or
Yeah,
they're
we
in a
live
big,
in New York.
and
At least
if that's just not going to happen.
I don't know, if you had a friend who was the mayor, if you were buddies with the mayor, maybe it would. I don't know.
that's the other thing that's ridiculous.
Stranger
I don't
things have
think the mayor
happened.
has that much influence over the police force. I really
Well,
don't.
aren't they
Well,
elected?
yeah,
I don't know. Anyway, who knows?
it's tough to say. I mean, because again, it's that relationship thing where sometimes weird stuff really does happen, and
Mhm.
but usually that's what we know. We know when that weird stuff is happening, that we know there's something hinky in the back. Some relationships pulling strings somewhere to get something
Yeah.
that doesn't belong. It's like,
I am.
oops, what time is it?
It's
Yeah,
time
we
to be
need to
done
go.
with Gumption.
Woohoo!
I
Aw.
hope everyone had fun. And
As we talked about random stuff,
as
mostly
we
not
talked about
castle.
We
Castle
still
and then
talked about
lots of
strong
other
women.
random stuff in the middle, but that's what we always do, right?
Yeah.
So we'll have another mystery topic from the mystery jar.
Mystery.
Sorry,
See,
the
doesn't that
jar
sound
of
more
mystery.
exciting?
Say it right, Trudy.
I don't
say it
know.
right.
The jar of mystery. You gotta say it with a deep voice. The jar
All right,
of
Trudy,
mystery.
you're the one who's in charge of saying it from now on.
That's pretty good.
Okay.
I'll say the
jar
jar, and then you have to immediately respond with the correct.
of mystery.
All right. See you next week.
Maybe I'll be a
Bye.
Bye.